Joining us is a man who is no stranger to the Observer, very outspoken. It's always a pleasure to have him on. Let me wish him a happy Easter. TV talk show host, Mr. Stephan Reis is with us.
Hi, good evening, Mikey, and happy Easter weekend to all of your viewers and everybody at the Observer.
Yeah.
And hope everybody having a safe, enjoyable weekend. We still have one more day to go.
Yes.
One night and one day, I'll be there, the long weekends go.
Yeah.
So what's up, Mike?
Well, what's up is we're on the final stretch. The countdown is on. And you and I have been talking about this for quite some time. I think it was only right that I call you before we head straight into this next Monday, of course. We're talking about the general elections. And, a lot of talk is being bandied about. I know a lot of things stand out for you. What you've been hearing, the narrative is being controlled and managed by the current administration. We see Dr. Rowley is back on the campaign trail. He's back out. He's with them on the platform. He's so popular, he's talking after the Prime Minister select. And, when you look at numbers and what take away all the smoke and the mirrors, the core issues here is what's being said. Polls are are coming out via the media. A lot of talk is being laid out as to things are being promised and also being delivered. You have unions like Tutor who are signing on because they're saying, listen, I'm playing for what I see now. I don't know what I'll see, and all of these things. If you had to sum up the tone of what's taking place, what would you say?
Well, okay, a lot to unfold here. I think right now, I particularly, having covered elections, at least the last two elections on television, that would have been 2015 and 2020.
Yeah.
For me, I think that the opposition has come across as being very well organized, extremely well organized in comparison to the past elections that I have experienced, with their campaigns and things like that, right? Usually the PNM, from the word go, they out the gate, they book in the ads, they book in the spots, they book in interviews, they know where they want to be, what they want to do, things like that, right? And usually, the opposition UNC, they usually come after, and they always seem to be a little more disorganized, right, than the PNM. The PNM just run like a well-oiled machine. I don't take nothing away from that, from them for that. Give Jack the jacket and Jim the gym boots. But this election campaign, from the word go, I thought that the UNC's campaign has been spot on. I think the slogans that they're using on the ground trending. I think that their marketing, whether it be from the design of the T-shirts to what is being said on the platform, to me has come across far more effective than what I'm hearing on the PNM platforms. I think that they're hitting the key points, the key concerns that the public has: crime, the economy, youth development, community development, tourism, things like that, healthcare. The message is very clear and very direct. On the PNM side, though, I'm a bit surprised because I would have thought that they would have been more prepared than the opposition, seeing that they would have known when the election date would have been. But all I'm hearing is they have almost resorted to attacking the opposition leaders, not necessarily her credentials, but capability or age. I've heard certain things being said on the platform that she can't, like she forgetting, and she don't know, she can't walk alone and things like that. And I just thought that to me shouldn't be the focus of your campaign after you've been in power for 10 years. If you've been in power for 10 years, you're supposed to have a track record that you come to lay out to your supporters and the rest of the country at large and say, listen, this is what we have done over the last 10 years. This is why we want you to vote for us. The conversation shouldn't be around social media personalities or influencers getting allegedly $40,000 to post videos and say yellow is the code. All right, that is not where your conversation is supposed to be. I'm hearing a lot of that conversation taking place. Your conversation not supposed to be revolving around where is the UNC going to get the money to pay the 10% to public servants. That is not your concern. Your concern shouldn't be that on the platform. Your concern is that, listen, we offered 4%. This is why we couldn't offer more, and then you leave it to the unions and they to say otherwise, or the opposition to say otherwise.
I agree with you. And going back to when you started your narrative there, you're right. There was always this feeling that, we're not PNM, but they always had a song. They always had an in-your-face aggressive campaign.
Yes.
You might even find yourself singing it and saying, but why am I singing this nonsense for a boy? But it was always catchy. And it makes you wonder, as the incumbent, you're so correct. You knew when the date was. You knew everything. Is it that you caught your own self off guard? It just does not make sense. And it shows that really and truly all that they are talking about, who is in experience and age and all of that they are showing more than anything else that they're just not capable. After 10 years, you're right. One would think that they would come and say, listen, we saved the country this much. We were able to elevate the citizens on this level. This is our direct investment. What we've done. These are the companies that are now doing. We're not hearing anything like that. As a matter of fact, what we're hearing is that every time Kamala Prasad makes a statement, it seems that Stuart Young and his team is still, all right, you know what, we'll give the divers something. You know what, we'll give the police something. You know what, it's like coming after the fact that she's laid out, on the platform. And that tells you a lot. So coming into the last stretch, one has to say to themselves, listen, I can't put another 5 minutes of my life or my family's life into the hands of these people. They just simply don't know what they're doing. They cannot give us a clear-cut vision as to where we are and how they're going to take us where we want to be. And that's what we're not getting.
And that is where I've always said people have to be honest with themselves. The population have to start telling the truth. Okay, it's like we just said, the current administration, the PNM, they're supposed to come and say, this is our track record over the last 10 years. What you're finding on the platform, and I've seen you on the platform, so what you will find on the platform, I am hearing the opposition leaders say, when we were there between 2010 and 2015, this is what we did for you. This is what we implemented. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
She could go back and reveal and remind people about her track record between 2010 and 2015. And the government of the day does not seem to have a track record, right, to talk about. Now, on top of that, they're using this word responsible, they're throwing around the word responsible a lot, right? A responsible government, and a responsible this and a responsible that. But this is what I want to find out, and I want the audience to understand this, right? Because this is how I think. I was looking at an article with the new Minister of Finance, Mr. Dan Paul.
Yes, Vishnu Dan Paul.
Vishnu Dan Paul, where he has been saying, talking about the devaluation of the dollar, been talking about the IMF and putting us into the hands of the IMF, and that the opposition is not going to be able to afford all the promises that they're putting forward to the public. But my thing is, right, and he went up, I think, on a political platform and he spoke to, because remember, he come back, he now get the job as Minister of Finance, so he's trying to at least hold on to it for 5 years.
Of course.
Because he, along with the Prime Minister, might be the shortest serving PM and Minister of Finance that the country ever seen, right? So depending on how things go on in 28, and if we go in with the current vibes on the ground, it is trending more yellow than red. But my thing is this: Kevin Ramnarine, and I'm sure you was in that meeting as well in St. Joseph. Mm-hmm. Kevin Ramnarine spoke to the audience and spoke to the nation. And he said that according to IMF data, Trinidad and Tobago is the 7th worst performing economy in the world. The Ukraine was performing better than Trinidad and Tobago, and the Ukraine has been at war for the longest while, about 3+ years, right?
Yeah.
And I want people to understand how serious a statement that is. Kevin Ramnarine made that statement, what was that, approximately 3 weeks to a month ago?
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago.
Good, about 3 weeks ago. The former Minister of Finance, Colin Burt, and the present Minister of Finance, has not said otherwise. They have not come out and discredited that statement, saying that, listen, Kevin Ramnarai not telling you the truth. For Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to ask you this, Mikey, given the resources that Trinidad and Tobago has, okay, whether it is energy sector or otherwise, right? How could we end up being the 7th worst performing economy in the world? Because I heard Mr. Dan Paul talking about responsible and who responsible, and that this PNM administration is a responsible administration. But when I think about responsibility, one of those responsibilities is the way that the economy performs. So if you have somebody there for 10 years and they have taken the country between 2015 and now to be in the 7th worst performing economy in the world, how could you tell me to go and vote these people back into office because they have managed the situation responsibly? Now you telling me that's in madness, and Dan Paul need to get here check?
Of course. And all you're hearing on the platform is a lot of verbal acrobatics taking place, because you are trying to convince us that you did so much to keep the Dragon deal alive. But it failed. Then you started telling us about the history. And then myself and Dr. Rowley, at the end of the day, it failed. We don't need to know the history. We need to know how we're moving forward now. Forget about that. Yes, the past doesn't equal the future. And yes, you shouldn't be ignorant about the past because you're doomed to repeat it. Now we've learned, what are we going to do? You can't tell us. You just simply can't.
And on the other hand, the opposition, you see, with that particular issue, and I've been telling people this, because people have been calling me and they've been saying, well, Stephan, the opposition say this and the opposition. Listen properly, and that's the problem with people in Trinidad and Tobago on the whole. They do not listen and they usually don't listen to things in context.
No.
The opposition at no point in time said that the Dragon gas deal was a bad deal,
No.
The opposition's issue was that, you're doing business with this man who has Venezuela under sanctions, is deemed a narco-terrorist. There is a bounty on his head, right? It was, I think, 15 million under Biden, and I think Trump raised it to 25 million.
Right.
You are doing business with a man who has allegedly stolen the last 2 elections in Venezuela.
A shady character.
A shady character. His governance of Venezuela has led to millions of Venezuelan people leaving their home to go to foreign lands to seek refuge. Okay? Yet you are consistently in the face of your biggest ally and your biggest export market, because America is the greatest consumer. You are having these conversations and flying down to Venezuela and talking to this man openly and having meetings, and you're running the risk of getting Trinidad and Tobago sanctioned. It was out of concern for what could have occurred. The way that they were dealing with Maduro in Venezuela so openly. Mm-hmm. It was never a matter of the Dragon gas deal being a bad deal and a deal that wouldn't have been good for Trinidad and Tobago. And this whole nonsense that the opposition didn't want that, and the opposition didn't want this, and the opposition is not patriotic. Nonsense. And I'm making these statements very boldly today because, as I told somebody yesterday, and I want to make this statement on the Observer, and I want people to understand this. I just be on social media, and I have my show.
Right.
So somebody told me the other day, Stephan, but I listen to you because you just really be down the middle, but I find you're leaning towards one party now. And when you're on television, you're supposed to be objective. Yeah, the whole story of objectivity, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And my response to them was simply this. Before I am a talk show host, I am a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Meaning that my day-to-day activities, every aspect of my life, is affected by the decisions that my leaders make. We could agree on that?
Yeah.
I am a citizen first. I am a talk show host after. All right? But having experienced Patrick Manning governance, Basdeo Pandey governance, Kamla Prasad Bisesa governance, and this PNM, way of governance, I am in a position where I could make a comparison, then narrow it down. Well, Pandey and Manning in here again. So this is a straight case between Kamala Prasad Bissessar, who led the country between 2010 and 2015, versus a PNM administration where we don't even know who the leader is, because we don't know if the Prime Minister is the leader, or if Keith Rowley, we really don't know.
Political leader
right?
is the leader, we don't know.
Right, we don't know how the gimmick going on play off after the 28th, we don't know. Because calling it a gimmick, because calling it for what it is.
Yes.
Right? So I can make a comparison now. And in my capability of comparing pros versus cons, the 5 years versus the 10 years, the decision is very easy for me to make, and I think it would be irresponsible for me to pretend that I do not have a position and an opinion on the direction that the country should be headed in. And if people vex with me for that, you understand, then that is their business. Because come next week, Monday, whatever decision you make, you're gambling with the next 5 years of your life, maybe 10 years of your life,
That's right.
Right? And you have to know that you're not gambling for yourself, you're gambling for your children. It's generations, it's generations going to be affected by this, the way that we move forward after the 28th of April. And I am saying that I am no longer in a position where I could stay silent, or I could sit on the fence and I could pretend to be down the middle, because a decision has to be made, and I believe that the right decision is the opposition, because I am not impressed with the last 10 years that the government, that the PNM, the way that the PNM has governed the country in any aspect.
And that's
just me being honest.
And that's it. You can't be more honest than that. That's the facts.
But as a fact, people will say the same. I mean, Mikey, I love what you said the other night in Center Excellence. You cracked me up, brother. You know what you said?
No, tell me.
You walk up to the, I think it's Anna Robertson introduced you, and you came up and you said, you welcome all of the UNC massive and so on and so forth. And you said, do not, for those of you at home, do not adjust your television. I am a black man and I'm UNC. I'm nearly dead with that. And this brings me to the next point. This brings me to the next point. When you look at the UNC crowd today, as opposed to the UNC crowd 10 years ago, it is a totally different crowd. It is a very diverse crowd, very inclusive. I am seeing people from all different walks of life, people from all different ethnicities, and they're all coming there together because I think they understand that we need a change. We need some sort of change.
Yeah. You're right.
And I see facts. And all on the point that you made with the Prime Minister, with the former Prime Minister coming back on the platform and talking. Well, I think that exposes the weakness of the campaign that the PNM running. Because if your campaign was strong and your base is energized with the new Prime Minister taking up his position, you wouldn't need to call on Dr. Rowley to come back and speak on a
because you started a new chapter.
Exactly. You can't say it's a new chapter and you're bringing back the whole leader. The old Prime. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. So you have the old writer writing what? The same chapter and calling it a new chapter?
Exactly.
You said that this man is going to bring energy, whatever you had internally, and the polls say that, hey, you know what, boss, don't go up, because they will reject you. Let's find some other strategy, some other means. That's what they said. This man is new, the new dynamic energy, and yet still you have to bring back the old chapter.
Yeah, and I think it's because we hear all kind of rumors about URP and CPEP workers, they putting them in maxis and guide them to the meetings, and I don't know if that's true or not, but we heard those allegations. I saw some videos on social media. I heard voice notes to that effect. But to me, that if that is true, that means that the campaign is weak, that the base is not happy, and you could understand why the base is not happy. The base is not happy because the proper way of doing things has not been done, and for many of the die-hard PNM supporters, they may feel that their party been hijacked, right? Not necessarily hijacked by Stuart Young, but hijacked in terms of the manner in which things took place. That they totally sidestepped the whole constitution of the PNM, the internal election process. You know, the way that things have to happen.
That's
I
right.
think a lot
That's
of the
right.
people, they're not happy about it. And I think bringing back Dr.
Stephan,
Reis trying to...
they didn't sign on for that. They did not sign on for that. Who heard of anything about a prime minister select?
Yeah.
Nobody ever heard about that.
No,
And you have to
nobody
pay your dues. You have to pay your dues. So you telling me that what? This guy, this Johnny come lately, is better than all the sacrifices that Penny Beckles made?
Yeah, but on top of that, you haven't given your membership a voice. You have taken away the voice of your membership and saying, this is the person we want.
Yeah.
Or this is not, you understand
No,
what I'm
this is
saying?
the person I want. That's what it's saying. I want. This is my guy. Yeah, this is my Gary Sobers. This is the guy that I want. And who don't like it? Well, so be it.
And that speaks to the dictatorial ways that particular individual has governed the country for the best part of 10 years.
So true.
In a very, very dictatorial manner. I will never forget the little 11-year-old boy who, in a home invasion, was back in 2016 or 17 or somewhere around there. So, I can't remember his name right now, but it was a little 11-year-old boy. There was a home invasion, and the bandit killed his mother, or the caretaker, and they slit the little boy throat. And I remember they asked Dr. Rowley about that in a press conference, and his response was, "We want me to do ban knives?" That was his response to an 11-year-old boy getting his throat slit. "We want me to do ban knives?" That was his response to the reporter. Look at up to Thursday. We're talking about responsible, right? We're talking about responsible governance. We're talking about a government that has made an impact on any sector, right? Whether it be tourism, crime, anything. Look at Thursday. We had men pull up on a man and let him have it.
Yeah.
In the airport, brother.
In the airport.
In the arrival part of the airport.
Right. In the airport.
Men went and put on a hit because crime, and we just come out of state of emergency.
And they do it bold and with all confidence, and that, hey, you know what? We are not going to be caught. Yeah.
So then what was the purpose of the state of emergency?
Just to buy time.
Correct. You call a state of emergency during Carnival. We know that you didn't implement a curfew because you didn't want to disrupt the promoters and everybody in Carnival, because that aspect of things is more important than saving lives. So if you go back to 2020, 2021, and 2022, they hold a million press conference telling us about saving lives. When they lock you down and everything that they did, right?
Yeah.
It was about saving lives then. But when people drop in like flies, you're coming off the back of 624 murders in 2024, the highest ever in the country history, right? And you calling a state of emergency saying that you're going to deal with high-powered rifles. And then you run it from up until April the 13th. You still have over 100 and something murders for the year. Throw in a state of emergency. And as soon as the state of emergency is lifted, you have a man get shoot. You have a man get gone in front of the arrival section of the Piaco airport. Now you telling me this, for that reason alone, 624 murders, highest ever in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, they cannot find a handle or a solution for the crime situation. That alone disqualifies them
to hold office.
From holding office for the next 5 years. But if you couldn't solve it in 10, how are you going to tell me you're going to solve it in 5 more years?
Hey, I got to open up the lines, but listen, I want to thank you so much. You know, we spoke about a certain time, but I know how to catch you again with the time, you know. I know how to catch you. Because these topics, really and truly, you have to try to see how best you can make sense of it for the people who simply do not understand. I want to thank you again, Stephan.
I could mention one thing in 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
I just want to put it across to you guys and to your viewers. Listen, we ain't a lot of talk about the EBC. I saw Wendy Lewis, the campaign manager for John Michael Ali Bokas, hold a press conference speaking of some concerns, right? Mm-hmm. And plenty of people have contacted me on concerns about the EBC. They cannot steal an election if the margin of victory is too big. If it only when it's close could those things be manipulated. I do not know what is the situation with the international observers. We know that CARICOM observers definitely are coming, because I know the car blank CARICOM. And one of the things that I think the opposition has to do, and they have to do it this week especially, you have a coalition of interests. So you have PEP candidates going up under one symbol, you have COP candidates going up under one symbol, and you have the unions. I think they should put those symbols out in the public space, properly advertised, so that people don't get confused when they go into the booth on the 28th. Because what is simple for us is not so simple for other people. Just to make sure that people understand that, hey, when I vote for Clyde Elder, I am voting for the UNC Coalition of Interests. When I vote for Philip Alexander, PEP, I am voting for the UNC Coalition of Interests.
Yeah.
So people not confused now. So that's just a little.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I believe it's going to be done this week. I agree with you.
All right, man.
All right, my friend.
Thanks a lot for having me, man.
Always. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the Easter.
All right, you too.
Okay.